one thing that I was thinking about earlier, while I was like preparing for this stream was, I think 2020 has taught me a lot about surrendering, um, in surrendering and accepting. Especially when everything has changed. Like the opportunities that we once had are not there anymore. It's like, what can we do, and that's the hardest thing for me, because I'm very much someone who likes to be in control of things. And I think with the whole pandemic and everything, I think that really challenged my sense of control. And that the only thing that I can do is actually just to surrender and let go, you know yeah. I wonder if you get.
I feel
Yeah.
I feel like that was also the lesson for me. It's like there was a lot of doubt in the start, or like because I was also building my studio last
Right.
year, and there was a lot of doubt in whether or not I should continue, or how to sort of pivot the whole thing. Like you're building a studio, and contact with people is sort of like supposed to be limited because of the risks and stuff, and like having to sort of pay for rent monthly for a space that you can't even use was tough for me. But surrendering to everything and sort of like just going with the flow and figuring out how to sort of like adapt
Mm-hmm.
and be resilient was sort of the biggest lesson. It's like, despite not having use for the space last year, the business part was still flowing.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, so in a way, it's like the universe just sort of gives us things that sort of balances it out in a way.
Yeah.
If you know how to look at it, yeah. Some people can sort of focus on all the bad stuff, but you can find the balance in the situation and sort of like figure out how to sort of transmute things. I think that was the lesson for me.
Jorge, does that come naturally for you to actually think of the world in positive ways, or like framing it positively? Because the reason I'm asking,
So
because
yeah,
I tend to, well, I'm mostly an optimist, but it took me a while to actually learn how to frame negative experiences in a positive way. So I'm wondering if that was something that came naturally for you, or was it something that you sort of worked on?
I think I learned it earlier on when I was in college. I got into like meditation a
Mm-hmm.
lot, and then I got into like esoteric books and occult stuff. And there's a lot of things that I learned from like alchemy or even like hermetics and stuff that I read that sort of like talk about even metaphysics,
Mm-hmm.
that talk about energy, talk about transmutation, and it's just a perspective for me. I used to sort of just like, if you don't control your thoughts, I feel like if you sort of learn how to drive or pilot your brain, your mind, and your thought process, it's very powerful because you can sort of steer your energy and emotions into whatever intention and direction you
Mm-hmm.
want. And I felt like before I couldn't control my thoughts, so it's like I'm just sort of like randomly going into different directions and not understanding that you can actually control your feelings to a certain
Mm-hmm.
extent. But I do also sort of feed into the negativity sometimes. Like I'm sure if you've seen me on Twitter, sometimes there are days where I'm super super
Of course,
depressed.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I oscillate between the extremes. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm bipolar, so sometimes I'm super super happy, hyper and positive, but I'm sometimes super super down and I just want to quit everything and drop everything.
Mm.
But I think what sort of improved over the years is learning how to sort of like control or tame the beast,
Mm-hmm.
for lack of a better term. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
What about you, Faye? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm a very hard-headed person,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel any sort of things I say which may come off as negative, whether it's my artist persona or if my music is more aggressive, or even just daily life when I communicate with people. And I tend to be the one who always points out something.
Mm-hmm.
You know that person who's like, if you're with them and you'll be at, like, say, like a grocery store or something, and you'll pick up this piece of food, and it's like, oh, this piece of food, it was this is made by this company who does this and this, and like always kind of being like a Debbie Downer kind of person. um, but I think it's because it's not out of
Mm.
negativity; it's more out of a positivity, because being aware, having awareness of what's around you, and the structure of things and how things connect. And having that awareness is something that can bring about something more positive. So I've always been on that side of things where being able to experience conflict or talk about conflict or talk about darker things are sort of things that get swept under the rug a lot, more so than not. I feel like so. I guess especially with this past year, I mean, maybe there's too much of it at sometimes, but I think it's was sort of being able to internalize what your boundaries are with being able to take in and process information like that, and how much you're able to give back. So yeah, I don't know. It's all just
Yeah.
balance at the end of the day. I suppose.
I feel like we need people like you, Faye. I think I think everything balances out. I mean, we need people who are also positive, and we also also need people who are also sort of like sees the world differently. Not necessarily negative, but sort of like frames the world in a way that it may not sound positive, but it's hopeful. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think regardless, all of it is out of a will to live and a will to survive. Whether that's like maybe it's some innate biological drive, but I feel whenever anybody feels strongly about anything, it's coming from their state of being and their perspective and how they're trying to persevere through life.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think both kinds of energy have value. Like they're all meant to flow. Like some people are sort of just advocating just posse vibes, and I feel like I don't agree. It's like I used to be one of those posse bros, like everything should be zen, or like, but I feel like it's a lot more sort of like natural to just let things happen, or allow yourself to feel both things or all things or all energy, rather than rejecting and sort of like denying the fact of life that you're going to experience these things, and actually acknowledging it actually helps you grow more into who you're supposed to be,
Yeah.
or sort of like own up to your purpose. I feel like that's sort of the lesson
A
for me
thousand
too.
percent. Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's both honoring the positive and the negative.
Exactly.
I think for me, if I could add to that, it's more of like acknowledging the negative, but also keeping your boundaries with it. That at some point, yeah, it's okay to feel bad. It's okay
Yeah.
to feel sad. And I'm not talking about like real, like heavy mental issues. I'm just talking about the shift in our
Yeah.
moods. It's just natural to do so. Honoring that. Oh, like today is not a good day. Or today it's a shitty day, and that's fine. And not
True.
wallow in it. Like sure, let yourself feel it, but don't stay there.